Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Munir Al from easymedicaldevice.com, and today we'll try, I say just try, to help startups to not go through some pitfalls that we have identified here. So being a startup is difficult when you are starting in a field that you have no real experience. So here what we'll try to do is to explain to you maybe some mistakes that other startups have done, and then also maybe give you some advice. It's just an advice. You have really to consult maybe with some consultants to really understand mainly how you have to get out of certain situations. But here we are giving you some examples that maybe will help you to understand that it's not only happening to you, it's happening to many other startups also. So for that, I have with me a guest, which is Adnan Ashfaq from Simply Medica. So Adnan, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Thank you, Munir. Thank you, and I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Great, yeah. I mean, you were part of the show a few, I think, let's say years ago now, because you
Yeah,
are going for
yeah,
validation, if I remember, equipment validation and things like that. So you were already coming to the podcast, but mainly here, yeah, the idea is let's use the experience you have mainly about with startups to help them because I think it's really an important topic that we are covering today. But before that, maybe you can introduce yourself.
sure, absolutely. Yeah, so my name's Adnan Ashfaq, as you quite clearly identified. I've been in the medical devices industry for 25 years now, and so much has happened in 25 years. It's unbelievable. The time has just flown past. I don't feel a day older. I'm always joking, but really. With the medical device industry, I mean, I come from a manufacturing engineer's background. Many people in medical devices, especially in regulations, when they're assisting for regulatory affairs, tend to be either science-based or engineering-based. And I happen to have an engineering bias. I qualified with a manufacturing engineering degree, and my first job, in fact, was in telecommunications manufacture, and then I moved into automotive manufacture, and then I got made redundant. I landed a job with Johnson and Johnson, and I worked with Johnson and Johnson for 5 years first, and then after that point, I decided I wanted to start venturing into different projects like contracting. So I became a contractor, and then I then set up Simply Medica in 2012. So for the past 12 years, I've been working on quality and regulatory projects, mainly for startup, and also a lot on software as a medical device, digital healthcare. Over the last 5 years, it's been more and more going in that space. And as I said, was in the last 25 years, you can see the rapid change in technology and the challenges with that technology that's come along with, the questions that's been asked. The movement in the regulatory target is not static, it's a moving target. The landscape and the requirements, the difficulties with the new medical device regulations, with FDA's changes and other global regulatory requirement changes. Also, even economic challenges, because 25 years ago, we're not in the same economic situation as we are today. That's also a moving target. So there are many, many things to consider over that period of time, which is really, really interesting and challenging as well.
Yeah, and I hope in this kind of chaos, we are the lighthouse consultants that are really helping with medical device manufacturers, are the lighthouse and helping them to find their way to their objectives. And yeah, it's true that mainly we have a lot of changes, a lot of differences from previous century, if I can say. And yeah, so we as a consultant, we have also to stay up to date, and it's why maybe your experience, as I've said, with startups can really help the audience here. And mainly, I wanted to ask you first, as you have a lot of experience also with startups and working with them. So are you more like I prefer to start to work with startups or you prefer with corporate companies? I mean, what is your feeling here? It's like I really like that startup things, or no, it's really negative because they when they are coming, they have no clue what they are talking about. They are thinking they know
Yeah.
everything and nothing, but etc. etc.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. I have a very, very clear position and an answer on that question that I definitely favor working with startup companies over multinationals. And the reason why is because No disrespect to the multinationals, but sometimes there can be a lot of rigidity in the way they work. This is a set way that they work, and they're not willing to change it. We just need your help and assistance, but within this framework. We don't want you to change anything. This is the set way. And sometimes that's okay to do that, but you've asked me specifically about preferences. My preferences is going to the startups. It's a blank canvas. And here, really, this is where I can apply myself the best. Over this 25 years of experience that I've equipped myself with, I'm really able to apply that in the best way possible with a clean slate, a blank canvas, and it's very rewarding to see that implemented, from zero to something, from something which is a concept, which a startup has an idea, and then they've no experience and no understanding of the regulations of how to then commercialize their device. And then I have the ability with my experience and knowledge to be able to take them from A to Z. And
Agreed.
that's really beautiful to do that.
Unearth the pulse of the medtech world with MedTech Conf, a dynamic platform featuring global events on medical devices, biologicals, IVD, and pharmaceuticals. Stay informed, stay ahead, connect, share, and elevate your knowledge. Become an official sponsor. Make your event shine on the map. MedTech Conf, your key to the medtech universe. Remember, the future is now, and it's at your fingertips with MedTech Conf.
Exactly. I have the same experience as you. I mean, my best success were with startups that had no clue about medical devices because they were really confident on our ability to help them and to do everything for them. Uh,
Yeah,
in comparison to companies that have some experience in medical devices and maybe they are not startup but they are already on the market, where they
yeah,
are trying to educate us more on what to do when we know what to do better than them. Because as a consultants, we have to be up to date each day, each time. We have to learn all the new regulations. While at the companies, they have just to stay up to date within their fields, if I can say, not within all the type of it. So it's why it's also a good comparison here. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm really with you on that. You have, as I've said, a lot of experience now with startups. What I want to do is for you maybe to tell me one by one, maybe what are some of the pitfalls that some of the startups that you know encountered, and also we are never just giving some kind of issues. Let's try to give them also some advice or solutions or how you would really manage that. So yeah, up to you then.
yeah, yeah. So thanks very much. Yeah. So really, I mean, it's let's start from the journey from concept, because very often when you're working with these device manufacturers, they usually come to us by the time they have a concept.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, they may already be a device that exists, but in fact, it may not be a medical device at that point, and suddenly they've done something in their marketing claims or something, and somebody has told them, "Well, you're a medical device. You need to get this certified under the medical device regulations or directives or the regulatory authorities wherever you're commercializing your device." So then the journey begins. But even those two scenarios that I've described, they are two different scenarios, because in the first one, there's a concept and they're really starting from zero and working their way into commercialization. The second scenario, which I described, is happening quite a lot, and I'm seeing this where devices are already on the market, but they are startup devices, but they're not medical devices. They are perhaps well-being devices, but they've been told by someone, by the regulatory authorities or a customer, that this is a medical device, and in order for us to sell it into our country, into the member states, this now needs to be registered as a medical device. So then that means that the whole regulatory journey begins again from the start. It goes back to zero again. Although they're beyond the concept at that stage, but they have to go through the same loopholes or the regulatory hurdles. Apologies, the same regulatory hurdles as the one would be at concept.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think it's the worst. This thing, it's the worst because many people think they are at the end of the journey or the way,
Yeah.
and now they discover now they have to come back from the beginning, and it's
Okay. Yeah,
sometimes it's a catastrophe for some companies because they spend all their budget on this thing, and at the end they discover that they have to do
exactly.
everything again.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of if we look at the scenario where there's a concept and there's no device in the market at that stage, really the device manufacturers should be doing their homework, research, look at competitors, ensuring where is the device that they want to commercialize. Okay, they've got an idea, but regionally there can be a big difference in where you place that device. Now, then it means that you really need to start thinking about commercialization. Where is the biggest market? I mean, are you doing this? I mean, okay, some medical devices might be doing things free of charge, but most medical devices are doing it for profit purposes. And if you want to be profitable, you want to see where is the most profitable commercial market. Now, we know that in terms of diabetes, cardiovascular, mental health, these are big sectors. And mental health, if you look at the longevity and the age lifespan of people across the world, and then Japan might be a good place to commercialize a device for mental health because the lifespan is like beyond 80. People have a long lifespan. And on the other side, in the US, diabetes is a big problem. So maybe a diabetes device, a glucose meter, a glucose monitor, or a software for diabetes might be good to commercialize in the US. So you have to do your homework of where you're trying to commercialize, why you're commercializing it there, who your competitors are that you're up against. So let's say if you go with the US for a diabetes type of device, then who are the competitors for that device in that market that you're looking to commercialize in? Do they even have FDA clearance? Or are you the first one that's going for FDA clearance? Because if you're the first one, the challenges will be very different. If it's someone that's already got a predicate device in the market, then you can do a 510K, or if you're not, then you have to go down a de novo. You might have to do clinical trials. The story that's unfolding can be very different. So the
Yeah.
really important thing is in the beginning to have the homework done. That's really important.
Exactly, and I suppose here that maybe you had experience with people that had never done their homework and discover that some news. Like I had an experience with a company that was thinking they had the best device ever, etc. And when we made some few search or few market search, we find out that they have already two or three competitors that are
Yeah,
doing the
yeah,
same device. And they were saying, "Oh, really? I thought that we are the first one." It's why I mean, it's like those companies wanted to go as quick as possible on the market, thinking that they were the first one while they haven't made their market research and find out that other existing. And sometimes when other are already existing, it's better because then you just look at what they have done to be on this market, and then it's helpful for you to be on the market. But yeah, if you wanted to be exclusive, if I can say, to a certain market, maybe it's not
yeah.
the right way to do it.
Exactly. So then the question that comes back is, if we're the same as the other device manufacturers, then why are we launching our device in the market,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So this means that there's another one, another choice for customers to buy another branded device. Maybe it's cheaper, maybe it looks nicer, it could be a cosmetic that's different. Essentially, the claims, the performance, technically it's the same device, etc. So that can be quite challenging. And one of the things is when you also have device manufacturers making so many claims that we can do this, and this, and then suddenly they see that we have to do clinical trials in order to prove this. But then you say, well, there's a predicate device already on the market that does A, B, and C, but it doesn't do D, E, and F. Maybe if you remove D, E, and F, then you will be the same. And then you can then enter the market in the 510K with a predicate device. And then perhaps maybe you can then, as you mature into the process, you have an entry into the market, you can then add those claims at a later date.
Exactly.
This is a strategy, right? So it's
Exactly.
very, very important to strategize the launch of medical devices
And
in the
I think this is difficult for marketing departments that they want to claim everything. We can
yeah.
do this, we can do that. I had one company that was making a device and they had like 23 claims, if I remember.
Wow.
but they were under MDD, and now they moved under MDR, and they went from 23 to 3 claims. So it's like
Wow.
because they had no clinical data for all those 20 claims. So it's mainly the situation. So yes, over claiming is more like a marketing thing. They say this, say that, or the competitor says also the same. So let's say the same as them, etc. But if you have no clinical data, I think this is one of the mistakes. When you arrive to a notified body, for example, you arrive with all those claims. I think there are a lot of non-conformities that are happening at that stage.
Yeah, because even in fact, I think sometimes it cannot be clear to the legal manufacturer what actually a claim is.
Exactly.
When an experienced eye looks at the documentation, whether it's a website or an IFU, any marketing materials, and they say, well, you've just said that this, so this is a claim. This is what's the evidence that you have. And I make it very clear, no claim, no evidence, no claim. If you have no evidence, then you can't make the claim. Any claims that you're making have to be evidence-based. And sometimes this can become a big shock for
Yeah.
those manufacturers, especially like you say, the marketing departments, you know, so it can be a big shock for them.
One of the issues that I've seen also on this overclaiming is like, oh, on the device, they are claiming the right things. But when they go to their website, they are like free of claiming whatever they want to claim, etc. And I had a lot of time the MHRA, that really the MHRA is the only one for now that I have seen that they are always looking at those websites and they are contacting the manufacturers and they say, oh, you said this, you said that, you said this, you
Yeah,
said, can you prove that to us? And then they contact us to help them to clear all those things. But
yeah,
yeah, overclaiming can also happen in other documentation than the product itself. So you can also do that in the different websites.
exactly. Yeah, so that's it's very important that even websites is also an area that you can fall. You can't just make statements on a website and then expect that everything in your device and the package itself is different, so you're okay. The website is also part of your device and your company and your strategy and what you're putting out there to people. So it's quite dangerous to
Exactly.
not review that.
Okay, any other pitfalls?
Yeah, I mean, so definitely. So the things, yeah, always starting up with what I offer people is doing a regulatory roadmap, and so I discussed this in quite a lot of detail with Greenlight Guru in a recent podcast that I did about the regulatory roadmap in detail, and it can be quite surprising how beneficial a regulatory roadmap can actually be,
Okay.
because that regulatory roadmap is not only the homework, but it's also the carrot at the end of the stick that you dangle in front of the investors.
Okay.
Because one of the other pitfalls is funding itself, right? So if you don't have the funding, how can you move from concept to reality? You need the funds to be able to do that. So this regulatory roadmap documentation then becomes an evidence-based research which has all of that work in it, which will then, when you put that in front of your investors, it's part of your business plan. It's then informing them the timelines that you're looking to reach market, how you will reach the market, what the cost implications will be to reach market, and are there any predicate devices in the market? That research has already been done. And, you know, it's like suddenly it becomes such an invaluable document. And now, as an investor, if I'm reading it on the other side, I'm ready to put my hands in the pocket and then put the money on the table and invest in this device because I can see the confidence, the work has all, the research has been done, and then we can begin the journey. So funding is going to be a major struggle. Now, it's not out of nothing that I can't remember the statistic, but there's quite an alarming statistic that the number of devices that actually don't make it to market.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons is because of the costs involved. It's like we were saying, you know, suddenly you make claims and you think your device to market is going to cost X amount, and suddenly it's in the millions, right? And you never budgeted for it to be in the millions. You thought maybe 100,000 euros, dollars, or whatever it's going to make it is a cheap way of doing things. But no, because let's just face it, the medical device industry is worth over $500 billion,
Yeah.
right? It's a good sizable market, and nearly 50% of that is in the US. Over 25% is in the EU. So there's no coincidence why legal manufacturers want to commercialize in the US, in Europe. That's obviously it's for commercial benefit that's there. But it's very important that because you're doing that research up front, you don't have those surprises later on that now I have to do a clinical trial. It's going to then take me years, and then the device is going to get to market. Now you have to remember the thing is that when these device manufacturers have made a prototype, time is so critical. And this is why many of the devices, as you said, the manufacturers want to get the devices out into the market as soon as possible. It's like a race. It's like who gets to the end line first because they know that other people are working on technology similar. So it means that, suddenly if the timeline is jeopardized because they've got to do more studies and trials and testing, then the other guys are going to get there first. So this is why it's so important. Do your homework. Look at the timelines. Look at the predicate devices. Look at the costing. Look at how realistic it's going to be to get your device into the market. If you have a small budget, then maybe this is not the market for you. These are really, really important points. When we then also have the regulatory roadmap, the next big task that can be a major pitfall is the intended use.
Yeah.
So when they're writing the intended use, this is not just simply writing the intended purpose of the device. The intended use, also from the MDR, it then calls out many other areas. ISO 14971 gives you a definition of the intended use, which then looks at the intended operating principles, the intended environment, the intended user, any risks that are foreseeable that you identify at the outset that you already know. This will help you classify the device and look at the risk categories. So having a really good, solid intended use statement with all of these factors as early as possible is very, very important, because also this is going to then inform you to the amount of work that you have to do, the detailed testing, any validation you have to do, any biological studies that you might have to do, because they might be biological claims, they may be skin contact or tissue contact. Then you have to do biological studies or an evaluation. You might have to do shipping testing or aging testing, shelf life testing, all these things, they all add on time. So then having the intended use statement is so important to have that in place. Right.
And you mentioned that intended use statement for that is really important, because we have also made from our side also a podcast episode with Cesare Magri, if I remember, on that. The only thing that is important is that for me this is really one of the first things that they have really to do, because as you said, this is mainly something that will be guiding for everything else, like what we talked just before about the regulatory strategy or roadmap. First, you have to understand your product before you can really decide where you can go and how you can go and what is the classification and what are the different predicate device or whatever. So this is, I think, one of the first things, the intended purpose that should be discussed. What I've as an experience for that is that some companies, when they are writing that, they're writing 2-3 sentences. This device is for this, for that, etc. But it's not really clear. But we have to make it really extensive to really have to go to each details. Should it be delivered sterile? What is the shelf life? What is the testing? What is the room temperature? What are your expectations with this device? What are the users? Is it only the patient, or is it also the doctor? What is the qualification of the doctor that needs to be using that, etc.? So you have really a lot of details to provide, which will help you to really focus and have really a clear information of the scope of your device, and where when it goes to the market, then you have really a clear understanding of it. Hey, just a second. Do you need a EU, Swiss or UK representative? Then choose Easy Medical Device. We can represent you and also become your importer. Contact us at eo@easymedicaldevice.com.
Exactly. Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I also did on the True Quality Summit with Greenlight Guru, I also did a presentation on the intended use statement, where I then fleshed out all of these different areas that the intended use statement needs to contain. Because in the US market, you have the indications for use. And very often, because they call it an IFU,
exactly.
In Europe, everyone gets confused between the instruction for use, which is also IFU abbreviation, and the indication for use, which are two different things.
Yeah.
Right? The indications for use is actually a part of the intended use statement. It's only one section. The instruction for use comes later on from the intended use. So it's an output from the intended use. So we have to look at it like this. And then because you were just talking about detail, the thing that I usually ask my clients to do is once we have the intended use statement, because I have a template that I then give them to fill out the template, we then later on go to a medical device detailed description. The detailed description then tells me much more detail of how the device operates. I will then ask questions like, how do you deliver the intended purpose of the device? Because this is very different now,
Yeah.
because you have the intended purpose, but how do you deliver the intended purpose? Do you have any transmission of data? Is there any interoperability? Is there any user interface? These things are you don't necessarily have all of that detail in the intended use statement, but the detailed device description gives me so much nuts and bolts of the device. I actually call it the blueprint of the device is the medical device detailed description. It's the kind of document that you would not want your competitors to get hold of,
Okay.
because the detailed device description talks about how your technology works. And then if, as a layperson, if I was an auditor, I would read the detailed device description. It then informs me to exactly what you're doing, how you're doing it, how you're delivering your intended purpose, how you're achieving it all. It's a very, very good document before I even get anywhere near the design inputs and outputs.
Okay. I think it's really important to understand all this for companies. And the idea here today is just to have an overview, but again, the objective is for you to then understand what are the different pitfalls and then to go to check them or check maybe some topics related to that. Now, let's say we are on the market. Is it over now? Everything is fine. It's like successful, and now we can just enjoy and wait. Or
Yeah, we only wish it was like that. So, unfortunately, not, because that's when the journey actually really begins.
yeah,
You know, it's like it's one thing is achieving a status, but it's maintaining it. You know, it's like let's take this in a very simple analogy. You know, people nowadays do all sorts of weight removal exercises,
yeah,
right? So people go on keto and diets and all sorts of diets to reduce,
exactly.
and that's very rapid to do that, right? But then maintaining is the difficult thing. You know, you can very easily go back up in all sorts of things, right? So kind of giving an analogy on health. And it's a bit like that. Is I'm not saying that it's easy to achieve the regulatory submissions. It's a hard task in itself to achieve that. Now, once you've achieved it, yes, it's a great achievement. Well done. You know, pat yourself on the back and enjoy yourself for a short while. But then you have to get back on top of things. Its maintenance is more difficult in some ways because it's not the end of the story. The auditors will come back. They will come back and there will be post-market surveillance. They have to come back and do audits, more further audits, to make sure that the certification that they provided you, are you still achieving everything that you did in the beginning to make sure that you're maintaining your device? If you have any more claims that you start making that you didn't make at the beginning, how do you deal with that? Have you got now new evidence for the new claims that you made? Are there any more risks involved in the device? Has there been any more literature breakthrough, scientific breakthrough? You also need to keep on top of that as well. Comparing that against your device, any scientific breakthrough, that's state of the art, right? And that's another topic in itself.
Exactly.
So the thing is that all this post-market surveillance, your device itself, since you've been on the market, have you had any complaints, feedback? How are you dealing with this? Similar devices on the market, what sort of complaints are they also receiving, so that you can compare your device against it? This is all about being proactive. The notified bodies want to see that you're being proactive in everything that you're doing to make sure that you have done everything in your strength and will to ensure that your device stays on the market and stays safe on the market. And it's these are the things that you have to constantly look at. Now, one of the things that we didn't talk about is QMS. We didn't talk
Yeah.
about QMS. And again, I know that that's another subject in itself, but you also at the conception of the device realization before you get into lots of the validation studies have ensure that you have a quality management system to ISO 13485. I mean, recently I've also had a startup company come to me last week with questions where they've had a device on the market, they've got no QMS, and somebody in one of the member states has said, well, in order for you to sell this into our country, you need to have ISO 13485. This is a medical device. I had to do so much research to check their claims to see if they're a medical device. I had to speak to a medical professional because this was an area that I wasn't comfortable with. Is it a medical device? And let me tell you one other thing. The other thing is that unfortunately, there's lots of dishonest people out there as well.
Yeah, I agree.
And we as regulatory consultants have an oath that we have to make. And I believe that it's like the Hippocratic Oath
Yeah, true.
that doctors make. And a long time ago, I actually brought together around 10 or 12 consultants in a forum and said, maybe we need to create this Hippocratic Oath, ensuring that we have an oath of allegiance to our customers, that we will only advise them correctly and not misguide them, because that's why they come to us, because they come to us for honest advice. And there's lots of dishonest, unfortunately, regulatory consultants out there that have taken these legal manufacturers down the wrong path, and it's cost them more than they needed to. I mean, I've had these conversations with some within 5 minutes with legal manufacturers, and I've not charged them. It's
Exactly.
a free obligation discussion, and I've saved them thousands and thousands of euros and pounds.
I agree with you, and I'm really with you on that. And I had also this experience where we had, and also we, as I hope to say that all correctly, but honest consultants, I hope. So each time we are the second consultant they are looking at, then they get more not trust first at the beginning, more suspicious, asking you a lot of proof of that you are really a great one, etc., etc. And this is a bit damaging the industry and the function of a consultant. But yeah, you have to be careful. It's not everybody is nice.
And
etc. I have always my motto, which is like, would I give these products to a member of my family? So it's mainly what I'm working with my clients. If a client comes to me and starts to talk about something and I have no clue what they are talking about, or their claims are bullshit, or they have no clinical whatever, I say, guys, I'm not really here to help you because I have no clue what is your products. It's not really showing any proof of safety, proof of performance, whatever. I mean, I'm not here just to get the projects and do it like that. So it's why having some kind of, as you say, a oath or something that to say I'm here really to help the manufacturers, but also the patients here. I'm here in the middle also to say, as I said, is this product going also to a member of my family? Even if I
yeah,
make it like maybe tomorrow my wife will get it or my son will get it, so would I be happy of that? And this is mainly what is driving, if I can say this balance to say, will I
yeah.
really help or not this kind of manufacturer?
I completely concur. When I started my first job in medical devices, this is the thing that we were always informed as workers in the medical device industry. It didn't matter where you were, if you were an operative on the shop floor, or if you were senior management signing documents off, or signing deals, you had to have that drilled into you that this device could end up in your family, and
Exactly.
that's
So
that's
I hope you like your family.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Unless you want to kill them off.
Exactly.
Exactly. So
No,
yes,
but it's great.
that's very, very important. So having a quality management system in place that instructs you, informs you to do the right thing, and is the right quality management system for you with the procedures and the templates and the work instructions, etc., for your device that make you work correctly. That's also very important to have an early stage, that the documentation is there. Because if you haven't documented anything, or all of this evidence that we're talking about, then it doesn't exist.
So
That
maybe just a last question for you. So have you experienced, because I had experienced that also, so companies that are coming to you, maybe saying, oh, we are ready to launch, we have all the documentation, but before we are launching, we are asking you just to do a review. The objective here is to reduce the price, that you are not doing the documentation, but they are doing that by themselves, and then you are just reviewing. So have you had this experience, and was it successful for them sometime, or?
So in fact, that's very commonly that's the way that's the usually the place that I start off. So when we have these discussions, very often, I mean, 95% of the time, companies are going to come with me and say that we have a constrained budget. You know, maybe 5% they won't. There's very, very few companies come and they don't complain about budget and they don't have that opening statement. So because that's a known fact, it means that they're trying to reduce costs and they have possibly got some documentation already available. So the starting point then means that I'm going to do a gap assessment. I'm going to do a gap review and check what documentation you have and what can we use for creating this technical dossier for regulatory submissions, and will it make the mark for anything that we're trying to do? And sometimes, yes, maybe we can use some of the information, and sometimes it's just not worth anything, and we have to start from the beginning completely. The regulations can be so clear and precise. There's no room for movement, and we have to achieve this, and that's very important. So the gap assessment is very important.
Yeah, I had this experience where a company came to us with like a quality management system, and we had to review that everything is fine, make an internal audit of it, if I can say. Um, we find out that they bought this quality management system templates from whatever website they had,
Yeah.
and somehow they have just changed the logo on the top, changed maybe the name of the people, and nothing else. And we discovered it's a software company. And inside it's saying, oh, the clean room, it should be like this, the storage should be like that. Say, why clean room? Why storage? What are you talking about? You have a software, there is no clean room or so. Oh, I don't know, it was in the original documents. Yeah, but have you updated the original documents? No, 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 we have just bought it and give that to you. It's like,
Wow.
it's like my.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's a complete
So
misunderstanding.
a 2 days audit came to like 30 minutes, and then you are over and say, guys, we stop here because otherwise you lose money for nothing. So yeah, let's do that. But yeah, we have these experiences, so it's why for those that are listening also, it's important that you understand that a medical device can go from a small class one device, which is like a small wheelchair, to a pacemaker, to a MRI machine, to a software, to drug delivery also system, etc. So it's so complex that you cannot just apply one thing to everything. You have really to be too specific, which is sometimes a bit different in the pharma industry, because mainly the form of medications are nearly the same, or a bit different, but at the end the way to go is nearly the same, as always. I mean, the tests that should be done are nearly the same. So here we are really a complex industry with a lot of differences, variations, a lot of things. So at the end, you cannot just take one thing that maybe a competitor or somebody else has given you and then just apply it without making any changes. But I think it's obvious. It's just that maybe you had this one case, but it's not really 100% of the cases here.
Yeah, no, exactly. And luckily, there's lots of guidance documents that are available that most of these legal manufacturers will never know about. Now, the thing is that it's regulatory consultants like us, we have the knowledge of these guidance documents because that's what we use.
Exactly.
We don't come up with ideas ourselves. We have experience coupled with industry guidance. So the MDCG guidance documents from the European Commission, very, very useful. IMDRF documents from the International Medical Device Regulatory Forum, very useful. GHTF, all the rest of it. The FDA documents, brilliant. And I think the European Commission is obviously playing catch up with FDA, because the FDA MOD database and their databases are very, very useful for finding product codes, classification, and similar devices. You can find the whole submission for a 510K online, and you can see what competitive devices have actually done, etc. You can't do that with Europe, not at the moment anyway. So if Udamed is heading in that direction more with clinical data, with information about competitive devices, I think it will be much, much more useful for those companies to see what is available on the market in the European Union. But at the moment, it's left upon our responsibility to do that research
Yeah, exactly.
Guidance documents are there to help. Sometimes they can be a bit more confusing, and that's where you have to look at your clinical or your regulatory experience.
Exactly. So, Adnan, now that we have, if I can say, looked at more all of the pitfalls, so how can you help people that are maybe listening today? What maybe can be some solution that you can provide to them?
So yeah, so I do every quarter there's a newsletter that gets published about the different regulatory changes. I just actually released the December one just today. That's before we wrap up for Christmas. I'm also doing free webinars online every month now. So if you connect with me, you'll see those online on LinkedIn. I'm posting them regularly now. So for these last 4 months, I've been working mainly on a validation program. So looking at process validation, equipment IQ, OQ, PQ, looking at packaging validation, looking at software validation. This is complete by the end of this month. And then from the beginning of next year, we will then start looking at MedTech startup essentials. So I will then start to unpack some of the requirements that startups need to look at over a period of time, and we will then be looking at the entire medical device development over several months. So that's quite intense. The other thing I'm also now doing is workshops. So some of these I'm offering, there are free workshops which I'm doing around the country nationally, which will be like a 4-hour intensive workshop with interaction with like a small cohort of startup companies that can attend, even academics from universities, even PhD students, they're coming as well with ideas, is to encourage the PhD students also to take their devices into the market, their research into the market. So that's also, I'm doing that. And on top of that, also training courses, where there's lots of companies that want training courses, they want customized training courses. They can also contact me to develop these training courses that might need more intensive, like a full day or 2 days or something like that on a specific area. They might want to have some of that idea. So I'm ready and available. I'm here to serve the industry. I've got 25 years behind me. It's a long period of time that I've spent in the industry, and I'm here to share that knowledge. So you can contact me.
Great, yeah, and I will put all your contact details on the show notes so that you can go to see the website of Simply Medica and also the page, LinkedIn page, so that you can contact directly Adnan and discuss with him about all this. And yeah, he will maybe tell you more stories about pitfall, because I said we have just 30, 40 minutes here podcast episode, but yeah, he told me that he can talk about that during 5 hours or 6 hours, so it's not a problem. Okay, so Adnan, it was really a pleasure. Thank you again. I hope really this will help some startups and go on the market first time right, if I can say right first time. And then, yeah, if there is any question anywhere, I hope they will be contacting you and discussing with you directly. So thanks, Adnan, and thanks everybody for listening to this episode. If you have any also questions from yourself or comments, don't hesitate to go to the YouTube channel or to the LinkedIn to make some comments, and we'll go through that. And if you have some topics that you want us to cover, don't hesitate to send me an email at info@easymedicaldevice.com, info@easymedicaldevice.com, and then we'll be looking at that and finding a guest that can talk about that with us. So thanks, Adnan, and I wish you a nice day.
Thanks so much, Munir.
Bye.